Everybody can mature, everybody can do better. What you don't do is timestamp that moment and forever say, that is a time when I was hurt by the church. Mature, emotionally mature people shake off things that are exceptions to people's character, shake off things that didn't go well. And if you really want to thrive in life, you ask, what is the good that I can take out of every situation? And then you bring that into your future and you get better and better and better. But secular humanism doesn't make you want to think that way. And let's also take it one step further. Now let's start talking about the nature of postmodernism, communism, and deconstructionism, which is the revolutionary desire to tear down everything that is disadvantaging any person. Right? So now we're separating the world into oppressors and oppressed. And any system that is so-called oppressing people has to be torn down. And this is subtly in everything.
Hey everybody, this is mikekai here, and I want to personally invite you to the Breaking Barriers Summit, moving from the grind life to the great life. If you know me, you know my journey has been one of overcoming incredible odds and pushing through challenges. At 19, I became a single father, juggling multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Life was tough, I'm not gonna lie, but I never gave up. Eventually, I felt God calling me into the ministry, and after years of refinement and improvement, I became the senior pastor of a church of 40 people in the town of Waikele here on Oahu. Through perseverance and faith, that congregation grew into a multi-site church with 6 different locations, 5 on Oahu and 1 on the Big Island. I'm sharing this because I understand what it means to be the underdog, to face setbacks, and to keep pushing forward despite the obstacles. The Breaking Barriers Summit is about harnessing that same grit, hustle, and resilience. It's for those who are battling through their own struggles, who need that extra push to turn their hustle into success. So join me as we dive into actionable strategies, bold insights, and the motivation you need to break through barriers and reach new heights. If you're ready to transform your grind into greatness, then join me on Thursday, October 17 at 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. Register now at mikekai.tv, and let's turn those setbacks into stepping stones. Hey everybody, welcome to the Pound for Pound Leader podcast. My name is mikekai, and I am your host, and I am fresh off of break and had a great time getting reconnected with my family. My daughter went off to college. We had graduation parties, we had graduation ceremony, entertaining family in my home, and then I got some time to be alone by myself with the Lord and alone with Lisa, which is always a great thing. And so I'm back, and I'm praying that you're enjoying this podcast. It's going to be great. But before we even do that, you know, I've noticed a lot of people who watch and listen to this podcast have not been subscribing. So if you subscribe and you hit that button, I'm telling you, you're going to get notifications, you're going to get deals, you're going to get opportunities that you otherwise would have missed. So go ahead and please subscribe and leave a few comments if it was great. We'd love to hear from you. Also, in addition to that, I'd love for you to go to my website, mikekai.tv. mikekai.tv. I've got an upcoming webinar that you're not going to want to miss out on, and you're going to want to register for it. And I also want to tell you that we're eventually, in the next couple of weeks, a couple of months, we're going to open up the cart again to be able to join me in The Great Life. The Great Life is one of my coaching programs that I do, and it has been phenomenal. It's how do you get the secret sauce of everything, that put it all together, that what makes you tick. And I want to encourage you to go ahead and do that. Go to mikekai.tv and go join The Great Life. Well, you're going to end up on a waiting list, and then we're going to open up the cart, and then you can join, and it is going to be worth your while. Because why? Because making an investment in yourself is very, very important. A cup of Starbucks coffee, just a tall, is $3.75. If you just have that, $3.75, something like that. If you keep having 5 of those or 10 of those a month, covers your own coaching and makes an investment into you. Lately, I've been making my own coffee with my French press. But hey, listen, this podcast is going to be awesome. John Cameron is one of my great friends. He's from New Zealand. He pastored an incredible church called Arise Church. Just a couple of years ago, he transitioned out of that role, moved to Australia, where he lives on the Gold Coast. We're going to hear about that in the podcast. And he is one of the brightest minds, greatest preachers that I know. And you're going to want to listen to this. Listen up close. Don't speed it up, because he dropped some bombs. And it's very, very interesting, especially what we're going through in America, what we're going through in the world, how wokeism is trying to take over. And I'm not shy to say that. And I want to tell you right now, how do you defend leadership, defend church? How do you defend your position in Christ and in the world? You're not going to want to speed up this podcast. You're going to want to listen to it in real time. Of course, I speak fast as normal. John speaks slower and deliberate, but every word is worth it. Take a listen, take a watch, take a view, subscribe. John Cameron, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Pastor Mike. It's an honor to be here, my friend. I love you.
You're looking good, looking fresh. You just got a haircut.
I just got a haircut from Russell, who's part of the church here.
Yeah.
And man, he is good. I'm feeling good.
I would use Russell if I didn't have loyalty to my guy.
Yeah. Well,
these hair guys, they're pretty loyal, They're like church people, Yeah. They're like, dude, if you don't use me, they get offended. You let somebody else touch your hair for in between haircuts, they get a little sensitive. I don't think Russell's like that, but I just want to be careful.
It's a trust relationship too, isn't it? Like once you've entered into it, it's like, okay, you can have my my next 3 weeks of how I look in your hands.
Exactly. Well, it looks really, really good.
Thank you.
He made a house call, didn't he? He made a house call. It's pretty sweet. That's awesome.
He was really kind.
Yeah, Russell Sharp. Anyway, if you're listening, if you're whoever's listening right now, if you're in Hawaii, go look up Russell Sharp and go get your hair cut from him. If you're a man.
Very good decision. You will not regret that.
So welcome back to Hawaii again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One of my favorite places in all the world is to be in Hawaii.
Saying a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've been all over the world.
I have been all over the world. Yeah. But there's something very, very special about Hawaii.
So right now you make your home in Brisbane, Australia, or the Gold Coast. Correct?
Yes, the Gold Coast, which is right next door. So basically Brisbane stops and the Gold Coast starts.
Okay.
And it's very similar to Brisbane, except for the fact that, basically everyone lives very close to the water where I live.
Okay.
So, yeah, close to the beach.
So you have, is the Gold Coast the name of a city?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting because Brisbane's a city. The Gold Coast you would think is like the East Coast, the West Coast, the California coast.
Correct, yeah.
But it's really a city.
Yeah, so on either side of Brisbane, you've got like north of Brisbane, you have what's called the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
That's not really a city. It's a collection of sort of towns or villages, but there's still 500,000 people there.
Wow.
And then on the other side, you have the Gold Coast, and that is undeniably a city. So it's 800,000 in the Gold Coast proper, but then across the border into another state, it kind of keeps going. So all up, it's 1 million people.
Incredible.
That live there, yeah.
Okay, so if you don't know, John Cameron is one of the greatest preachers in America, in the world, I would say. And
I will take that.
And I mean that.
I hope that we got that on camera.
Yeah, you do. We got that. I've always been impressed with your preaching.
You're too
always been impressed with the insight, the revelation that you get, and definitely you're still at that level, if not exceeded it. But if some of our listeners, if you don't know, John pastored a church in New Zealand called Arise Church, and now he's consulting, he's coaching out of Brisbane, Australia, the Gold Coast, Australia, and he's just come back from a whirlwind tour of the United States, of the mainland, what we call it the mainland. So where have you been?
Okay, so I have been to Virginia Beach, Orange County, Las Vegas, Birmingham, Alabama, Tucson, Arizona, Washington, D.C., and now Honolulu, Hawaii.
Wow. Okay, so you've been all over. How long was this trip?
It's
5 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Just over 3.
Okay, so were you with Michael Maiden in Tucson?
No, I was with Waylon Sears.
Okay.
Waylon and Dana Sears. Do you know them?
No, I don't.
They have a phenomenal church. It's a massive church in Tucson, and I love it. So I've been there several times now.
Virginia Beach, who are you with?
Steve Kelly.
Steve Kelly, of course.
Yes.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to Australia.
Yeah.
So a long time ago, one of my second or third trip to Australia, possibly my first or second Hillsong conference, had to be number 2. I take my family to Surfers Paradise, Where is that? Is it in the Sunshine Coast or the Gold Coast? Or?
Gold Coast,
okay.
Yes.
I go to Surfers Paradise. It's the winter, but I figure it's, I didn't know it was the winter. I thought it was the summer.
Yeah.
So I figure I'll go to Surfers Paradise in the summer in Australia. And when I get there, bro, it is like 60 degrees outside. It is so cold. It's sunny.
July.
It's cold. It's July. And it was a little disappointing. I was like, oh my gosh, I thought it was going to be warmer. It was actually colder. And so that was my introduction to all these different coasts, Brisbane and all of that. Beautiful country. I love Australia. I love New Zealand. Can't wait to go back to Australia in about a couple of weeks.
Yes. Yeah. You're going to be on the Gold Coast too.
I'm going to be on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
With,
we'll have
City
to
Point.
hang out.
Yeah, we will. It'll be awesome. See you there. Okay. So here we are. And a lot has shifted in the world. And I'm not looking at my questions at the moment, but we've seen some titans in the last 5-7 years go down, and as recently has happened in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
It has shook the Christian community. Yeah. And with all of that tectonic shifting of plates of titans in the faith, coming from now the outside, not necessarily being a senior pastor of a thriving in one of the greatest churches New Zealand has ever seen, or the Southern Hemisphere has ever seen. Tell me what are your thoughts on what's happening?
Well, I think, we're living in a time where several things are happening sort of simultaneously would be the way that I would see it. The first thing is, I think that there has been a concerted effort demonically over about the last 10 years, or maybe even a little bit longer, really attack anything that is apostolic. So we're seeing that is just, I think, an attack vector. So wherever you see sort of stability of leadership, but not really like the raising up of leaders, the advancing of the kingdom, this seems to be fairly, safe. But then whenever we see leaders that have an apostolic drive that is raising up leaders, winning souls, starting new campuses, all over the world, those environments have come under peculiar attack. And I think that's important to note because this is not advantageous for the kingdom. Like we need the apostolic. The Bible says the church is built on the foundation of apostles and prophets. So I think that's a truism. I think the second thing that we're experiencing though now is that basically there is no such thing as anything that will not come out. So everything is going to come out. And in some ways, I see the church paying the price for things that have been not dealt with thoroughly enough when they should have been dealt with. So then we're finding now that things are kind of being dealt with in second and third waves with really with really terrible impacts as a result. And so I think if we're learning anything about this season, we're learning no matter what it is, we need to deal with it head on in the best possible way, straight at the start, because otherwise we're probably going to face it again in the future and it's going to have a worse impact in the days that are to come. But there is this desire within us often to not deal with things not in to the maximum need, because we're hoping that it just seems too painful in the moment, and so we try and push it further down the line. My counsel for leaders right now is, I think every leader needs to make sure, number one, that they have a very active prayer life, that they have people around them that are praying for them.
Wow.
Secondly, I think that every leader needs to make sure that they are just purposefully looking at their own lives. And wherever there is a shortcoming or a weakness within you as a leader, front up to that. I always like to remind people that there is nothing you cannot grow your way out of. There is no problem that you're facing that you cannot mature your way through. But if you keep it hidden, then it's just going to eat away at you in the background. Yeah. And eventually, the chances of it being something that takes you down just increase with the pressure and opportunities of your life.
So when you begin to look at all of these different fractures and fissures that are going on in people's lives, especially in the senior leader, I mean, if you take out the senior leader, you could really scatter the flock, right?
Like the shepherd scatter the sheep.
Yeah. So when I begin to look at the different things first of all, I have a very good friend named Phil Cook. Have you heard of him?
I have heard of him, but don't know him.
Okay. Phil is the guy that they call in for damage control. Okay. So when there's a problem, when something's hit the fan, news has come out, something that was hidden came to light, Phil's the guy that they call Phil Cook, they call Sam Chan, right? Yes. Phil Cook's one of those guys, and Phil's a filmmaker, and he made the whole Hillsong film. Great job. Love him. He just wrote a book called Church on Trial.
Okay. And I need to read that book.
Oh, I'll give you a copy.
Yeah.
And that book really tells you how to crisis-proof or crisis prevention your church, because the crisis is coming. Yes. And how do you manage yourself through that crisis? And what a great book. I mean, if we're talking to leaders right now, we're talking about every aspect from your children's ministry to your social media profile to inadvertent comments that are made to a disgruntled former staff member that started a blog or all these different things and how to handle that. I think it's a critical book. So when I went on sabbatical, I got the book and we're going to do a podcast on the book. But when I got it, I got the book, and what I did was I decided not to read it. I read one chapter. I'm like, this is going to throw me off.
You won't have a great break if you read that book. No, I understand.
So instead, I did one better. I had the whole staff read the book.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about the book in September when I get back with them.
Right.
And sit down together and talk about that book. But I think one of the greatest things that we've got to be careful for is it is a demonic attack against the church.
100%.
Super demonic. And it's really fueling disgruntled church hurt. I hate the word church hurt, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And there is legitimacy to that. There is some legitimacy to that. But if you didn't get hired, or if something didn't go your way, or you didn't get you thought you were going to get that spot on that worship team or whatever, people find anything to say that they were hurt. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're reaping the fruit of what our culture is sown, and the worldview that has been sown over the last 20 or 30 years, combined with the fact that we now have algorithmically driven perspectives on life. So two things.
Say that again.
Algorithmically driven perspectives on life. So the problem now is that we are living in, firstly, the fruit of secular humanism. And this is important for every Christian to hear, that secular humanism has become so integrated into every cultural message that you are hearing that unless you are a discerning believer in Jesus, you are probably being formed in the way that you're seeing what's happening in your life right now in light of something that is totally based in a there is no God worldview. The second thing that's happening is that now the algorithm is driving our culture further and further apart. So your bias in life is getting confirmed because whatever you click on, whatever you view, you're going to be sent more of. And that's not just TikTok. And so much of what we are accessing now is through whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all these formats where people are learning and gleaning and being exposed are driving the wedge further wider. So now what we're doing is we've got people that the moment they feel that there is any grievance in their life, they're going to hang just a few seconds longer on some post in that direction. Next thing you know, they're getting 10 posts in that direction, and their perspective of their situation just grows and grows and grows and grows. Wow. Yeah. Mike, I think one thing that you and I both have experienced, you've been in ministry for decades, so have I. Mm-hmm. I've had leaders in human moments treat me in a way that I'm sure they're not proud of. Yeah. I'm sure everybody's been in an environment where the conversation was short, where something didn't go your way, where the work really wasn't needed to be done, or the hours probably just weren't handled well, and you ended up doing more than was needed. Why? Because we're dealing with imperfect people in imperfect situations. Everybody can mature. Everybody can do better. What you don't do is timestamp that moment and forever say, that is a time when I was hurt by the church. Mature, emotionally mature people shake off things that are exceptions to people's character, shake off things that didn't go well. And if you really want to thrive in life, you ask, what is the good that I can take out of every situation? And then you bring that into your future and you get better and better and better. But secular humanism doesn't make you want to think that way. And let's also take it one step further. Now let's start talking about the nature of postmodernism, communism, and deconstructionism, which is the revolutionary desire to tear down everything that is disadvantaging any person. Right? So now we're separating the world into oppressors and oppressed. And any system that is so-called oppressing people has to be torn down. And this is subtly in everything.
Wow.
That workplace is toxic. That environment is X. You know, this is not this is not right for that you are treated that way. So then what the culture is trying to do is tear everything down. Let's get very, very clear. If you're tearing anything down, what are you replacing it with? Vacuums are not beneficial, right? We don't want vacuums. We want intentional structures that are being designed. And so this is what I think we need to be careful about, right? Because I'm so fired up about this. I'm sorry I'm talking too long.
No, please.
But I just think the danger of this is that we're seeing people going, that's wrong, tear it down. This wrong, tear it down. I'm like, wait a minute. Because we are tearing down something that, number one, is actually probably not that bad. And if we just took it on a journey, 2 clicks to the left, it's absolutely phenomenal. And we're not replacing it with anything. So we're paying a massive price for it. And within the church, I see tremendous danger in this because we're taking down, or there is being an attack on, for instance, Mike, you know this to be true. The word mega church now, for many people, is synonymous with unhealthy church.
Right, yeah.
And that's just not true.
No.
Mega just means more people found a spiritual home there.
Yeah.
More people have their lives turned around there. That church welcomed more people than another church down the road, right? Yeah. The mega just means more, just means we got more people. So then what we want to do is we want to say mega is good because reaching as many people for Jesus is good. So now, where could that improve? Let's identify that. And every pastor I know is trying to get better every day. Right. Here you are, you're talking about Church on Trial. That's just one book of many you're going to read this year.
Yep.
And I'm the same, to get better in this task. So the feedback mechanisms need to be kept in line with that. The critique needs to be kept in line with that. And we've got to be careful that we aren't just allowing the algorithm to drive our opinions to a zenith where we're suddenly seeing things in a light that is absolutely, in the cold hard light of day, not helpful for anyone. And with that, I will finish myself. Sorry.
No, I agree with you. I've also found that people have found a sympathetic ear with even Christian counseling.
100%.
I'm like, wait, you're a Christian counselor? You got to understand the kingdom.
Yeah.
You have to understand the kingdom. You have to understand the church.
Yeah.
You can't just, coddle and burp, hurt people, who are once staff members at another church or whatever, or my church or someone else's church. And that even goes on. And it's kind of ridiculous to be.
Well, we're seeing, we're diving into everything that's going to get us in trouble. But I love
Christian counselors, but there are a few out there that they're into tearing down too.
Well, Mike, let's be honest, right? One of the draw cards towards counseling, not the only, there's a lot of good Christian counselors, Christian psychologists. But one of the draws is that I had to overcome a significant amount of hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And now I want to, be engaged in helping. That's good. That's a good motive.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? But the problem is that often the hurt hasn't been properly dealt with.
No, it hasn't.
Like I can tell you that, one of the dangers that we're seeing is like pastors now and pastors on staff in churches are being required to have a certain number of supervisionary counseling sessions as part of the church's insurance policy, right? So in order to keep their insurance, the pastors need to have a certain number of counseling hours.
Is that in America or the Southern Hemisphere?
Certainly in Australia.
Certainly, okay.
And I think it's coming into the States as well.
Okay.
So here's the danger with that. You don't have enough counselors to counsel all of these people. So there's a rush to get supervisionary certification to comply with insurance. And in the deficit, who's applying for these roles? Who's doing the certification?
Formerly hurt people.
Hurt pastors who are no longer pastors.
Wow.
So then we've got staff members getting offended by their boss, going to this supervisionary session and having their perspective confirmed. Look, sometimes it's probably valid, but let's say a portion of that time, it's extremely unhelpful.
Yeah.
Because what they really need to be told is get better at phrasing this, get better at working through it. Yeah, you need to be more assertive, but you also need to help yourself and you need to get a better attitude sometimes. Like this, it's a dangerous situation.
So good, bro. I'm glad we're having this conversation. Did you notice the light changed?
Something just happened.
Okay, so let's talk about, we're talking about the algorithm of social media and how that's affecting everything. So did you get to see any part of the opening of the Olympics? Did you see it live or did you catch video on it?
I think everybody in the world's caught video on it. I did not watch it live. I think I was on a plane.
So I watched it live.
Uh-huh.
And I'm with a discerning biblical mindset.
Yes.
I'm watching this and I'm going, okay, why is there a bull's head, a huge bull's head on the stage? Then I see all this, this parading on the red carpet of alternative lifestyles going back and forth and back and forth. And okay, and for me, I'm like, that's ridiculous, but that's Paris, right? You take God, 5% of the people of France apparently go to church, only 5%, okay? So now you've got, I see this pale rider on a horse thing. And I'm going, what is the symbolism of this? I mean, I did not see the Last Supper until later on, the Last Supper depiction. Yeah. I didn't see the wings when they were entering in. I didn't see all this, what we would call demonic signals that are being passed on through the Olympics, which makes no sense because this is about athletes. This is not about creative license. This is about athletes. Now, all of a sudden, you get this Last Supper deal that's going on, a mockery of it. And so I posted on Instagram that this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then I get, suddenly, everybody's an expert on Greek mythology.
Yep. Yeah.
And so they're going down this Greek mythology thing, that this is all Greek. How do you know? I mean, I have not seen a Greek version of a Last Supper. I have not seen it. Anybody know that there is one?
I've never seen one. I mean, everybody knows Leonardo da Vinci's famous portrayal of the Last Supper. And when you see the scenes side by side, I mean, the commonality is, it's easy to, the adage goes, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
Right.
And, and they did that kind of apology, like, we're sorry for hurting people, which is not an apology, and so I mean, personally, I have very, very strong views on it. Yeah.
So I'm just looking at where the world's headed. I'm looking at November 4th coming up, which is huge for us in the election. I think we definitely need a change. This is Mike speaking. I really believe we are in trouble right now. Yes. We have a commander-in-chief that is pulled himself out of a race because he's admitting that he can't do the job. Right. I mean, he couldn't do the job for the longest time. We have open borders. We have another 10 million people who have come into our country to the southern border. We have Iran going after Israel and Israel defending itself, but looking for permission from the United States. How hard can we go? Yeah. But I love Bibi Netanyahu. I'm grateful for that, man.
Yeah.
We've got China just getting ready to eventually attack Taiwan, which is going to pull Australia, America into a definite war in East Asia. We've got Russia with Ukraine, and we in America and in the world, we don't have that one guy that everybody respects right now. We don't, and Trump was it at that time. He could stand down the North Koreans. He could hold at bay the Russians. He could keep in check the Chinese. And we're coming after. Now there's an assassination attempt on his life just 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And most churches didn't say a thing about it that next Sunday morning. It happened on Saturday. And most people didn't say nothing on Sunday. It's really interesting.
Wow.
So from our vantage point in the middle of the Pacific, from what I can see, I hope this election is a fair election.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from where you sit, prophetically, are you seeing anything prophetically?
Well, I think this is a season now where Christians, basically there's been a lane within Christianity, right? And the lane for the last 3 decades has been, we're going to do everything we can that nothing we say within the church is ever going to be something that someone who's not a Christian doesn't want to hear. So the lane was keep your Sunday sermons broadly, like accessible to every person. Don't touch on the controversial topics, like don't talk about homosexuality, don't talk about, politics, don't talk about X topic, Y topic, just stay broad in what you're doing. Right. The problem is that the way I see it is that lane is now closing. Like I think that lane is ending.
Right.
And you got 2 choices. You either go to a different lane or you're going to have to cross sides. And I think this is where the church is at. And what's challenging about this climate for the church, Christianity, and for pastors is the very real reality that we have moved from a peacetime footing with our culture, which we've enjoyed for the last several hundred years, to a wartime footing with our culture. And getting used to being at war is new. Yeah. So pastors are resigning everywhere. You post anything on social media and you get a barrage of really, really strong commentary back, hateful things. People label you things. I mean, it's absolutely insane, no matter what you do. So I think that what I see for the church and for pastors is pick a lane.
Yeah.
Like nothing you say is going to be broadly accepted by everyone. The pursuit of that is not possible.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is pick your lane, do it before God, and then be in public who you are in private to the best of your ability, because then you are at least giving people something that they can get behind you with, that they can rally around. And for us as believers, I think it's very much a time where I'm not saying that every person needs to be out there on the front foot at war with every Instagram post with all that's going on in our culture. Yeah. But we certainly need to be willing to have a view that isn't broadly accepted. And the reason why is because what is broadly accepted is centered in deception right now. We've gone beyond anything comfortable, permissible, tolerable. We need to admit that there are things that are just plain wrong that are being accepted by mainstream culture. And as the church be comfortable with having a view about that, that may make people initially react negatively. But listen, lots of people react negatively to something, go away and keep thinking about it, and later on change their view. And so it's a new era, Mike. Mm-hmm. I think for the world right now, this is a peak time. Yeah. A friend of mine wrote a book called It's Midnight in America. And, I would never want to speak about America not being American. Mm-hmm. But I think that the world right now is it's coming down to some very, very, this is the ultimate moment. We want to make sure that we are prayerful and I think courageous in this season.
Have you, so what do you think about the times that we're in, end times?
Yeah.
You know, do you think these are the last days? Do you think trib, mid-trib, post-trib? I know we all want to be pre-trib, but is it really pre-trib? Does Christ come back before the tribulation? What are your sense on the coming World War III, Armageddon, all that stuff?
I think all that's possible. World War III, and you know, I think we're seeing flashpoints now that are incredibly
so close.
significant.
If Trump got shot, we would definitely have a civil war in America. Maybe not World War III, but there would have been an uprising.
So I think everything is on the table. I think it's also possible that this is a tumultuous season in human history, and that the pendulum swings back to a more sane position. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're already seeing a retraction in other nations around the world of some of the extremities of transgenderism, for instance. So I think that it's very likely that we're going to see a return. Trends do come, and when they come, they seem like they're there for life, and then they roll out again. So I think we just got to see how this thing rolls out. In terms of Jesus coming back, live each day like it's your last day, you know, before the. But also I think Christianity probably in the 80s and 90s mismanaged that and failed to plan for the long-term future. And now we've got Christians who don't have retirement savings. So I think that we need to do both, right? Like we need to, this is a dark hour. This is a serious hour. Yeah. Like we do not want to underplay that. Yeah. But also in your planning, you might die before Jesus comes back. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. But if you're going to talk end times, Mike, please talk to my wife rather than me. She is really into this stuff.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Deeply passionate about it.
Let's transition. Let's talk about leadership.
Okay.
So I have a couple of questions my staff has put together that they want to ask you.
Okay.
And after this, we're gonna have a dinner. Yeah. And whatever staff is here, they're gonna sit and pepper you with questions. But here's a couple of questions. I got you here. Let's go. So what are the biggest leadership struggles that you're seeing in the next generation of leaders?
There's one thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me do two things.
Okay.
But I don't want to preach too long because I've already been doing that.
No.
So let's go with the first one.
Okay.
The number one thing. So every week, Mike, I deal with at least probably 10 different churches. And this season, I'm talking with senior pastors, leadership teams, sometimes boards, at least 10 churches a week. The number one thing that we're dealing with when it comes to the next generation of leaders is the absence of grit. The absence of grit is the single greatest challenge of our world today.
Wow.
Now let's define grit.
Okay.
The ability to go beyond personal comfort, endure difficult seasons, be emotionally stable when things aren't going your way, move beyond personal exhaustion in moments when it's just not easy to do things now, carry a load that stretches you in a season. This is what we're dealing with in our world today. And I think if we're going to deal with it, the one thing that we need is a new generation of leaders that are realizing that so much of what you're being communicated in our culture is that your feelings should decide what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And this is a really, really bad way to build your life.
Right.
You know, do not think about your feelings when you are making qualitative decisions about your life. Of course, there needs to be an audit where I'm looking at my emotional state, my mental health. But that is so emphasized right now. I'm not throwing that out, but let me just swing to the other side, right? Because there's two railway tracks.
Yeah.
Your feelings come and go. Your feelings lie. Your feelings are unstable. Your feelings can be triggered by your food, your mood, your time of the,
absolutely,
there's your so sleep. Many factors, that impact your feelings. So don't make a decision on your feelings. Sometimes you need to, if you want to thrive, if you're a next generation leader watching this podcast, let me just encourage you. Do hard things, difficult things, things that you don't want to do. Show up when you feel like you just want to quit. Refuse to have anything in you that is going to cave simply because it is difficult. I'm seeing leaders. Esau lost his birthright because he was hungry and gave way to a soulish feeling.
Yeah.
And later on, he sought the blessing again with tears and couldn't get it. Don't give away in your life what you'll regret because you just had a difficult season. I think that's the number one thing that I'm hearing from pastors.
Wow.
I think it's the number one challenge. Yeah.
So the absence of grit means the presence of softness.
Soft.
Yeah. Not willing to pay the price, not willing to push beyond.
Yeah.
More worried about their other things. Like I remember when I got into the ministry, I was dying to get in.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I had better options. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that was my best option. I wanted that.
Yeah.
But I didn't want it too much, because if you wanted it too much, then you got to watch your heart, your agenda.
Right.
But I wanted to get picked.
Yeah.
And I remember what that was like. And it wasn't about preaching. It was about, I want to do something great for God. And I'm so glad that my pastor saw it in me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Are you seeing less people that want that? Or they want the light, the stage, they want the mic, what are you seeing?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing is people who think that when it's not convenient, that it's not God. Or when it's difficult, it's not God.
Yeah.
Or that, high expectations are unreasonable for them in their lives. Now, of course, everybody's got a story about how 10 years ago the church's schedule was not too good. And I think that that's fair. Like 15 years ago, we all worked too hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we did. But every pastor's conference in the world, we are learning smarter ways to build healthy, life-giving churches that are going to utilize energy in a positive direction. So if you're not careful, you're connecting dots that should not be connected between what the church did 20 years ago with today's reality, which is if you want to grow in your life, you're going to get tired. You're going to be discouraged. There's going to be things you have to do that you don't want to do. But if you don't steward the moment that you're in right now, you could be giving away something that is so much greater than one moment where it didn't feel good. And I just think that's what we have to prepare a new generation to see. Because at the end of the day, in every area of life right now, the cultural message is how you feel, your mental health, how you feel. Just remember, nobody telling you that is going to pay your bills when you're broke, give you opportunities when you realize that you're in your mid-30s and you're a long way off from your dreams, purchase a house for you because you enjoyed the money that you had rather than paying the price when you were 18 years old. Yeah. So just be so careful that you remember grit, delayed gratification, digging deep, and having resilience. These are the only ways that your life is going to move forward.
Yeah. It's interesting. I love what you just said. I think we kind of come from, even though we came from different countries, kind of had that generation of training that to whom much is given, much is expected, much is required. Yeah. And I'm grateful for that. So my senior pastor, I mean, he wasn't perfect and I'm not perfect, but I can tell you, he there were times, man, he gave me opportunity. He was tough. He was tough.
Yeah.
He's tough. Yeah. And you know what? Now I look back and I go, thank you. Yeah. And sometimes, some of my guys, who are no longer with us or whatever, they're doing something different with their life. Sometimes I know this may sound a little, maybe a little chippy, but sometimes I just say, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. You're welcome, because you learned so much while you were here. You had so many great pastors come in. You worked in probably one of the top environments in the state, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And when you get out there and then you realize, I had one guy say to me, I had to let him go. It was finally time to let him go. And he was just struggling. And finally I said, let's go find something else for you to do, man. So I gave him about 2 months, go find something, and blessed him on the way out the door. And he came back to me about 9 months later with tears in his eyes, right. And saying, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for everything. I miss the staff chapels. I miss the teaching. I miss being close. And I'm thriving where I'm at today in my new job. And I love it, but I miss being here. And I just want to say thank you. And that came to me in a season of my life when I needed that. Yeah. I needed that. And so I'm grateful. So I've had to adjust the way that I lead the older that I've gotten. And with the new generation that's being brought up, right? So, I love basketball. And I don't think anybody could handle Bobby Knight today. He wouldn't be able to coach. Bobby Knight was the greatest basketball coach ever. Indiana Hoosiers, him and John Wooden were the top, Mike Krzyzewski, Dean Smith. But what's his name? Coach Bobby Knight from the Indiana Hoosiers, he was brutal, but he won national championships. In fact, he got fired from Indiana because he was too abusive, they called him. He got fired from Texas Tech for the same reason. And you look back at his track record and go, yeah, he was brutal. However, there is no way that style would work today.
Right.
And now what you're seeing is more like a Steve Kerr,
yep.
Right?
Right.
Like semi-woke, not semi, like woke, but very coddling of his athletes, all of that. I'm not saying that I'm going to go woke. There's no way, but I'm just saying that over the years, I've had to adjust in the way that I lead.
Yeah, and I think that's very, very true and valid. Yeah. Right. So I think that pastors have got to keep upgrading. Employers have got to keep upgrading their skill set when it comes to how to work with people, build intentional environments, master conflict, master feedback, ensure that the way people's energy is being used is efficient and going in the right direction. These things are all very, very valid. And then how to talk with people and not used to hearing it straight up. Like I think, one of the things that I do in my coaching ministry is spend a lot of time trying to help churches to establish a feedback culture that is normalized throughout the organization. Yeah. Because if it's normalized, then it's not going to overwhelm these young people who are increasingly sensitive compared to, our generation, Mike. Yeah. But on the flip side, because it's not a one-way streak, some of what you're being told, if you're a young leader in the culture, is actually trying to make you weak. The devil wants you weak. Yeah. The culture wants you weak. Yeah. And God doesn't, the Bible says those who know their God will be strong and they would do great exploits. And so if we want a generation of great exploits, we need a generation of strength. And part of that is about making sure that we don't just take on board a narrative or a self-belief that you are weak and fragile and, that your mental health far out. Life is very difficult. You have to go through difficult seasons to do anything that is worth doing with your life.
So you said that there were two things.
Yeah.
You brought up one.
Yeah.
And that was the absence of grit.
I would call the second one, Mike, the darkness models. Okay. So there's a passage of scripture in Isaiah 40, I believe. Don't hate me on social media if the reference is wrong. I believe it's Isaiah 40, 10-12, where the Bible says, "Who among you fears the Lord, who obeys the voice of his servant, who walks in darkness and has no light?" So there are seasons when you love the Lord, you're obeying his voice, but still you go through darkness seasons. Mm-hmm. And God gives this counsel to people in the darkness seasons. He says, trust in the name of the Lord, rely upon the Lord your God. And then he gives a real warning. But all you who light your own fires, this you will receive from my hand. You will lie down. And what I'm seeing is, because we've had so much upheaval, right? COVID, we've had, things destabilize in Christianity. We're now dealing with the fact that if you are a Christian or a pastor or a leader, everything you stand for is getting attacked. And so they're finding very creative ways to attack it. rather than coming straight up the guts and saying we hate Christianity, they give birth to a whole wraparound suite of challenges against the church.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of that, young leaders or inexperienced leaders are starting to make their theology in the darkness of the season.
Wow.
So they're what Isaiah 40 talks about is lighting their own fires. So they're going, well, this style of church is bad. We need this style. And I'm like, okay, well, moving the church is fine, but defining everything that God has done for decades as being bad is really, really dangerous. And so be careful where you're getting your models from. I would prefer to see that people are slightly grabbing new thoughts, but not moving ancient boundary stones, and keep moving forward in the right direction. I think it's a real issue. Certainly what I'm seeing is that a lot of pastors now are having to deal with people coming to them from their team and saying, I don't know if you've had this, Mike, but in churches I'm working with, there's just young leaders throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
You don't even believe what?
Well, radical changes in theology, radical changes in the way that church should function, radical changes in service composition, church style, what we should be aiming for, and I'm like, wow. Wait a minute, come on.
No, we're not getting that, so praise God.
Yeah, there is a world to be won to Christ.
Well, I can tell you something. During COVID and during the whole summer of George Floyd, all of that, I wasn't sure how many of my younger team members were thinking the way that I was thinking. So I carefully navigated that season from the pulpit with wisdom. But I also, because, every life matters, no doubt about it. And of course, it's a Marxist organization. Right. So, of course, everybody, well, let me back that up. Let's back that up. We're going to probably have to edit this part out, but that part that I just said, because it wasn't clear enough. John, there was a time at the beginning of COVID that I wasn't sure that my staff was thinking the way that I was thinking.
Right.
And I would watch their body language when I would talk about what was going on with the elections of 2016 and 2020, what was going on with COVID, where that originated from, how that came through, all of the false narratives that went around that. And now all of a sudden we don't have cold and flu season. All the numbers got put into the COVID category.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And more people are dying in the hospital, not from COVID, but from the complications of the treatments and all of that. And slowly, but surely, I was able to help them or win them over to seeing things the way that I thought that they should see it, or the way that I saw it. And now I look back and I was right. I wasn't wrong in the way that I saw it. Yeah. It's being proven. It's being proven right now. And so that was a difficult season. But also, even in the church, like we're 1,000 people bigger today than we were last year.
Amazing.
Just this location.
Amazing.
Another location is 300 larger than they were last year. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're growing. But what I've noticed is the sooner that people know pretty much where this church stands, the better.
Yes. Mike, can I give you my little summary of what you've just said?
Yes.
And you are one of my examples of where you see this. The culture right now is rewarding bravery. If you're the pastor of a church, please hear that. Yeah. The culture is rewarding bravery. Wherever you find a pastor who is nailing their colors to the wall, clarifying what they're about, man, they will probably lose a few people. But in every case where I see bravery, I see two benefits. There might be an initial short, kerfuffle. In every example, though, that is then being rewarded by long-term influx. And here's the second thing that's happening. Life is fun for those pastors. Yeah. Their team become unified, discipled on the same direction. They feel like they've got partners in this journey together. Yeah. And wouldn't you say that's true of Inspired Church?
I would say 100%.
And so many others of our friends where they've just been like, no, this is wrong. We're coming out swinging. They're being rewarded in attendance. They're seeing, you've never seen so many souls getting saved. That's another thing we've got to talk about.
Yeah.
Because people think that if you just, if you come out and talk about the issues of the time, that lost people are going to run. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
In fact, we're seeing in many examples, the silent majority being drawn towards Christianity because Christianity is getting louder about cultural issues of our time.
Right.
I mean, that's happening.
Yeah. It's thank you for pointing that out. It's been our greatest year ever in our 22nd, 23rd
Wow.
year. It's come with spiritual warfare, no doubt. We talked about it over dinner the other night.
Yeah.
It's come with undoubtedly spiritual warfare, mainly probably not necessarily against the team, but probably more towards probably me.
Yes.
So that 2-month break was really, really good. But I do see that people are hungry for, the ones that are coming to our church are looking for a leader, looking for a pastor that is not angry, but he's unashamed.
Yes.
Unabashed about what he believes and where the country's headed. Because at the end of the day, I think people have to understand, man, I don't know any other country like America that was founded on biblical principles. The framers of our Constitution put God in it. Yeah. Definitely knew the inalienable rights of man for the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, meaning it comes from God. Yeah. And America's an experiment.
Yes.
It's a 270 year, about 230 year experiment that the world has never seen before.
Right.
Never. And it's not necessarily a democracy, it's a republic. And did you hear the statement by someone asked right after they met, and what's his name? Benjamin Franklin was walking out and a woman asked him, she says, tell us, what do we have? What do we have? And he said, you have a republic if you can hold on to it.
Wow, yeah.
If you can hold on to it.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned, no doubt about it, that we're trying to hold on to it.
Yes.
We're trying to hold on to this God-given republic.
Yes. That
God has given us, that has been, in my opinion, the greatest experiment that has inspired other countries throughout the world. And right now, man, we need God to move powerfully. We need a revelation, a revolution. We need a reformation, revival. That's what we need.
Yeah.
We need reformation and revival. I was reading about Josiah.
Yeah.
Just 2 days ago, my devotions, how he did so much tearing down.
Yeah.
So much demolishing. The words tear down, demolished, all of these. And I'm praying that can happen in our country.
I totally believe it can.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, we need it to work. Like right now, there is a demonic narrative that is taking over the Western world. Yeah. That, biology is fluid, that is secondary to impulse, that, genders are fluid. Mm-hmm. What was accepted as psychological instability is now being celebrated as freedom. Mm. And let's get really clear about it. Like we're heading in a very dangerous direction. And I think that, the only country in the world that is anywhere close to winning this war over a new orthodoxy is America. And we need it to work. And I know that all around the world right now, that people are being encouraged and inspired by the voices that are emerging, and by the progress that is being made. It's amazing. Even in this difficult season, we are actually seeing some phenomenal victories for God's kingdom, and I think it's really, really exciting.
What are the bright spots? What are the different things that you're seeing now? Okay, you've traveled a lot since becoming a coach.
Yeah.
Where, again, I want to say that he's one of the greatest church planters ever in New Zealand, raised up one of the greatest churches, and new season for you the last couple of years being an executive coach. And so you're going from country to country, and mainly in America, I would say right now, doing a lot in Australia still.
Yeah, America, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, South Africa. Yeah. Those are the main countries that I'm in.
What what's the common denominator of churches or Christians that are thriving? What are the 2, 3, 5 things that you're seeing?
Well, I think across the board, 2024 has been a much better year than every year since March 2020 when COVID hit.
Yeah.
I think every church has been through all kinds of upheavals. This is the first year where most people are saying to me, we're having a great time.
Yeah.
So praise God for that.
Mm-hmm.
There are some outliers, and where the outliers have been during this COVID window has been where there has been courage. The culture has rewarded courage.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that, in terms of the bright spots of what I'm seeing now, as I think, we're taking far more seriously the need for discipleship in the church, and we're realizing that we're going to have to go deeper. We're wrapping our head around that. I'm seeing a lot of churches with thriving youth ministries starting to return. And let's be very, very clear, that's where we paid the biggest price from COVID.
Yeah.
Like when you start to get down we're 20% down, we're 30% down. Some churches were 40, 50, 70% down after they came back from COVID. When you break those numbers down, which I've done, basically it is, sort of 13 to 30, where most of the percentage was lost.
Yeah.
So we're seeing really great returns to that again now, and a rise of youth ministry and a second wave, which I think is really, really exciting.
I would like to say that about our youth ministry. We just had a junior high camp with 220 kids.
Wow.
Followed by a high school camp of 240 kids.
Holy, wow.
And our young adults ministry went from 40 to 400 in about a year and a half about a year and a half period, a 1 year period, 40 to 400. And so we're seeing that come back as well. It's a move of God.
Yeah. It's also just the fruit of your leadership and showing that what you're doing is healthy, because that's the young generation voting with their feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible time, man.
Yeah, it is. It's a wonderful time.
Yeah. Yeah, we are having the time of our lives. I pray that every pastor that's listening to this, every leader, that you're encouraged by what this discussion is about, and praying that it lifts you. I want to Jono Cameron, what are you doing today to stay mentally sharp and have the energy for the long haul?
Well, I think one of the most important things for me has always been that I'm a lifelong learner. So to stay mentally sharp, I'm studying like crazy. I always have. I would listen to an audiobook every week.
Yeah.
So I often kind of confuse that and say to people, I read a book. I don't read a lot of books. I listen.
Yeah.
I'm always the kid with my hand up. Like my lifelong goal is to be the person asking the most questions in every situation. Just always asking questions. I'm exposing myself to bigger people all the time. Like in this season, one thing I've done, I've made more friends whose success scares me than in any other time in my life. Hanging out with guys that have done things that are way beyond what I could ever dream. But this is the only way that you stay sharp. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Name a couple of those guys that you were that you just came from a trip with, that you traveled around the United States. Name a couple of names of people who are that big and that
freak me out.
Yeah.
Well, I just met Blue, who is the creator of Studio C. Have you encountered this?
No.
So this guy has created this whole way to change the way that churches are communicating with people, so that essentially all communication is linked very much to each individual's spiritual journey within that church. So rather than just carte blanche communications to everybody, you're communicating with people exactly along the lines of where they are at. And he's got this, wow. I could have spent, he talked to me for 10 minutes and I literally said, I love you. I'm drawn towards people that are thinking about new ways that we can change the game. It was the greatest honor of my life to get to meet him. Dean Sweetman, who created Tithely.
Yeah, I know.
I just try and talk to Dean as often as I can to pick his brain, to learn from what he's experienced, to see, You know, here is this guy who has literally enabled churches. Mike, nearly every church I go to in the world, some point in the service, Tithely comes up on the screen.
Really?
All over the world.
Should I be using Tithely?
Well, it's a phenomenal resource. He has the cheapest rates, as far as I know it, of
we need to look
online transactions. He's absolutely brilliant. I mean, so I just like to get around him, because here is a guy who just thought of something brand new that no one is doing and is changing the game.
I met him about a year ago.
Yeah.
And we had dinner. He was really awesome.
Oh, yeah. He's phenomenal. I mean, I personally think Sammy Rodriguez, I mean, here's a guy who's not only like leading the Latin churches, built an incredible church, one of the greatest orators, advised more presidents than anybody in our generation. He's also now doing movies.
I know.
It's like, when does the guy sleep?
Yeah. He's part of my spiritual oversight.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm always seeking out people who challenge me and make me feel deeply insecure about what I've accomplished in my life. And then as long as they'll let me hang around them, I hang around, and just get as much as I can out of them.
Reading, audiobooks, getting around bigger people.
Constantly.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add to that? Mentally sharp?
Well, I mean, I think to stay sharp in this time, you need to have very good disciplines around sleep, nutrition, and exercise.
Absolutely.
I mean, why did Adam and Eve sin? Food. Why did Esau lose his blessing? Food. The most abused verse in scripture is take, kill, and eat. I mean, remember that God gave that verse to Peter in the context of evangelism.
Yeah.
That Peter was literally excluding certain types of people over food. Yeah. And he said, take, kill, and eat. And now we've turned it into this great swath of permissiveness that we can eat crap. Can we say that?
Yeah, you can.
Eat rubbish. I'm sorry. Just to be clear, in Australia and New Zealand, what I just said is not a swear word.
Yeah.
So please forgive me.
Yeah, they're all good.
We've turned it into this great swathe of permissiveness that we can eat rubbish food every day and then expect God to still bless us. Yeah. No, sowing and reaping is real. Yeah. Your food is the seed, your health is the harvest.
Wow.
And if the book of Leviticus teaches us anything, one of the messages is certainly God's interested in what you eat.
Amen.
And so, I have a very disciplined nutrition regimen, supplement regimen. I sleep at least 7 hours every night, and I work out every day. To make sure that I'm on top of my game.
John, thanks for joining us on the podcast. Really appreciate interviewing you and having a great time and being part of our lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an honor. Thank you for having me.
There you go, everybody. That's John Cameron. We had a very candid conversation, very deep and so awesome. I really love his delivery style and everything that he said. Make sure that you subscribe, because a lot of people are not doing it. They're watching it, they're listening, but I would love to have you subscribe, leave a comment, and thank you. Join me on mikekai.tv for the great life. Until then, next podcast, we'll take care. We'll see you later. God bless you and aloha.